Hello, welcome to Angular, NX After Dark, but we're also using Angular. It's just dusk now in Denmark. It's 9:30 in the evening, and there's not much wind right now. So we'll be looking into the Energy Insights application again. And today we're going to do more work on the data access library for the CO2 forecast of the Danish electricity market. Let's jump right in. This is the repo. It's called Energy Insights. You can find it on my GitHub profile. And we're in this branch, creating the feature for CO2 data access. We have, well, let's start by looking at the NX Dependency Graph. We're using pnpm. And here's the dependency graph. So as you can see, we have one app project and this data access project in the CO2 domain or scope. And they're not connected right now. And they shouldn't be directly connected. There should be at least one layer between them, a feature library, and probably even also a shell library between the app and the feature library. So we're building like the architecture up one layer at a time. And right now I'm using my tests, my automated tests, to drive the design and the API of this data access library. I'm also using Wallaby, a paid product for inline testing feedback. So it says that 3 tests are passing right now. I hope this is big enough. Sorry for the 720p. So we have this library here, the data access inside of the CO2. And we created the CO2 forecast store by using NgRx component store. And I noticed that I accidentally exported this interface that shouldn't really be necessary, since it's an internal state structure to the component store. So it's not directly exposed to any consumers or any other libraries. So just removing that export. So this service class is extending the NgRx component store, and internally it's using this state structure with the records from the HTTP service. And right now it is exposing the records directly. We'll be modifying that when we find out that we need some other data structure, probably. We're also injecting our HttpClient for this data set on the energy data service in Denmark. And based on that, we're, among other things, we're starting an effect. We're initializing an effect here by calling this query filter on which dates we want to select the data for or query the data for. And right now it's just dummy dates, but we'll get real ones eventually. So this is our effect, and this is where we're getting this query filter of the from and the to date. So we're both reacting to that filter changing, as well as every time 60 seconds has passed, and initially when this service is created. So this is a timer kicking off every minute. It will switch map over to this HttpClient. So that means if there's already one request going, it will be canceled and replaced with a new one if there's an update before we get the answer or the response from the web API. We're also using this tab response operator from NgRx component store, which is forcing us to manage or handle both the success case and the error case, in which case we will clear the records in our internal state. And if we receive a valid response or a successful response, we will replace the current records with whatever we got from the web API. This is our updater for this record field in our state. It's internal right now. If you're using it if you have a component store that is specific to one component, you will have public updaters, and they will be called by the input properties of your component usually, and that's very useful as well. And here we have the initial state. We have to initialize the internal state before anyone can subscribe to observables in this store, or before we can patch the state, or even before we can call an updater on the state. We're doing this in the constructor. So here, this is our constructor. It's calling the super from the super class, which is the component store class from NgRx that we are extending. So we're calling that and passing it the initial state object. We're also debouncing this public observable property so that if there's several changes going on within the same moment, the same VM turn, it will only result in a single value emission. So it's usually a good idea to turn that on for public observable properties. Okay, so that's how far we got, and the HTTP client is very very fake right now, but let's try to implement parts of both of them. This is where we're at. Okay, so I'll just change this, remove, export back, or what is that called? Keyword? I don't know. So this is one of the the pros of the component store, is that you can have everything in the same file, but we should still be aware that it doesn't get too big. If it becomes too big, like much longer than 100 lines of code, 100 to 150 lines of code maybe, then it's big enough that we should consider splitting it into multiple services, basically. But when we're also having these interfaces, of course, that's also additions to the code. That's not really the implementation, so to speak. And even these updaters take a lot of lines of code just for a simple update operation of internal state. What is this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of code for one updater, a very simple updater? Yeah, that's nuts. That's a lot if we're having 100 lines of code rule of thumb, right? But yeah, usually, like if you have a lot of updaters, if you have too much going on in here, you might be doing too much in a single service anyway. So yeah, keep an eye on that. The component store should be about data that's very much related, and they affect each other, the different pieces of state that we store in here, and so on. So yeah, something to be aware of. Okay, let's actually, what do we need to do now? Well, either we could, hey, Chow. Yeah, you have a 200 lines of code soft rule for component store, and that's a good rule of thumb. I created a component store today, a presenter service actually using the component store, and I extracted that from a component that was too big, and then I saw that the component store presenter was already too big, so I split that into 3 presenters actually, and which showed me that 2 of them were almost exactly the same. So there's definitely some reuse, some opportunity for reuse there, and I'll be looking into that, because it will be the same in other components, I'm sure, because it's an app that works a lot with charts and visualizations of different time series. So yeah, that's nice. It's nice to split things into smaller pieces, because then you start to notice the patterns in your code rather than a huge chunk of junk. And what are you saying here? In another project, you use immer component store to reduce the amount of spreading syntax. Okay. Immer component store. I have to look at that. I have to look at that. Oh, so Tim also created immer for component store. Here it is. Okay. So combining component store with the immer library, I guess. Updater. Okay, interesting. So it looks like it's mutating, but yeah, I guess immer is I'm not very familiar with immer, but I guess that immer is making it an immutable operation, even though it looks like using the mutable API of an array. Yeah, NgRx immer, yes. I guess there's a bit of delay. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Very good. And it's by Tim of the NgRx team as well. I'll give it a star. Look into it later. Okay, and yeah, to remind you, what we're trying to build here is I want to look into the public data APIs from the Danish. It's called a transmission system operator. It's the ones that is responsible for the high voltage electricity grid infrastructure in Denmark. And here we can see, oh, I have a dark theme or whatever, so the colors might not be that good, but it is after dark after all. But this last hour was 50% wind and solar. I saw in a few hours ago it was around 75 to 80% wind and solar power in the electricity grid, so that's great. But we'll be looking into the CO2 emissions of the electricity grid because there's a forecast. So that's what we're going to visualize first. And right now we see the coming 8 hours is, oh, it's getting very low. It will get below 80 grams per grams of CO2 equivalent emissions per kilowatt hour produced of electricity. So yeah, this will be a very green night and early morning in Denmark. Great. And Michael was using Redux toolkit with immer before and liked it. Makes immutable look mutable. Yeah, that's what I noticed as well. Interesting, interesting. Okay, let's see. We want to test or we want to implement, or both, of course. But let's dig a bit into the HttpClient. This is I took that out of the Data API Explorer. This is the URL we'll be using. So it accepts as a query string parameter called SQL or SQL, which you can send a string of a Postgres SQL query. It's very strange, but that's the technology is called CCAN. So it's a public data API framework based on Python and Postgres. So that's what they're using. So we'll be creating a query similar to this one and then add a date filter on top of it and remove the limitation. So first of all, it is using HTTP. So we'll be injecting let's see here, this is a method. So I'll have the constructor above the method. I will then inject the HttpClient from Angular. And I'm still missing, if someone can tell me which VS Code extension I'm missing so that I can do auto import, because this is really annoying. You need to make a habit of using read-only. Yeah, I really don't like using. Did I use read-only? Oh, you mean for like saying it's immutable? I guess I didn't use it. But yeah, in the NgRx docs, they for component store they use read-only. I don't really care for that. I mean, who in their right mindset is going to change a property of a class they don't own? Yeah, I don't think it's big enough of a deal that I want to add that noise of the read-only access modifier everywhere. Okay. WebStorm. Okay, so you're using WebStorm. So yeah, that's the VS Code extension I'm missing. I actually have access to a WebStorm license through the Microsoft MP program, but I like VS Code, so I don't need it. So I also, yeah, I like using this tool so that it's free, and I know what I can recommend to everyone. With Wallaby here being the exception. This is a paid product, and I really recommend it. Like it's the most important thing to my developer workflow is Wallaby, and it has zero configuration for Angular CLI, Jest, Create React App, NX, Node.js, Mocha, Jasmine, Jest. Everything works out of the box. So I just start it up in a project, and it works. Unless there's some custom setup, but all of those technologies are supported out of the box without me having to set anything up, which is a huge improvement from earlier. In the earlier versions, it would often require some configuration, which was kind of a pain. Okay, so we will be using the HTTP client from Angular, and so HTTP, it's a GET request, and we have this URL. Just stored it in a variable here. That's fine. Why not? And then we can pipe it. So we want to return these records. We're getting out objects with these properties by default, but since it's SQL, we can rename them, for example, to camel case instead of Pascal case. We can even do SQL operations on them, like averaging and summing and maxing and all of that fun stuff. But this is what I want to return for now. I want to return an array of objects of this shape. But the issue is that's not what we're getting back out of the box. We're getting, let's go find it, the CO2 data set here. The prognosis is the forecast. Let's go to our network tool here and submit again. And we can see here, this is what we're getting back. So it's an object with a property called result. Success is true. Hello, Brandon. Nice to see you. An object with success is true if there's no errors. And then we have a result property. Then we have the fields property inside of here with the column names and types on the Postgres table backing all of this. And then we have the actual records, which we're interested in. So here's an example. I will be omitting this minutes 5 DK, which is the local Danish time without a UTC offset. I'll be using the one with the UTC offset, and I'll be mapping it into JavaScript dates that I'll be passing around the app. And then I'll be renaming these properties to camel case instead of Pascal case. So, but yeah, I really need this. Let's see. Let's see here. Give me that whole object. like so. Copy value. Let's see what I'm getting. Only the true. Man, I'll do like this then. So this is the shape we're getting back from the response. And then the result is also an object, and it had this what was it called? Fields or field? Fields, records, SQL. Yeah, some string here. Okay, so this is kind of a shape we're getting back. This is a big interface. I'll put it in a separate file. CO2 emission prognosis. No, wait, this is the secant response. Or maybe this is the read-only you were talking about, Zhao. Yeah, this is where I use read-only for all the properties in my interfaces, just to force immutability somewhat. Because then we're not mutating shared objects and arrays or, well, properties of the objects. Okay, so this is the secant response, and if it's a secant successful response, it will have success true. There would also be the secant error response, which would have success false, and then it definitely doesn't have these, might not even have the result. There's probably an error or something, but yeah, I don't remember. We'll put it like this now. This one needs to have a generic type parameter record. Like so. Yeah. Good. Making progress. So here we can pass it in here. This will be either secant response of this record class we created, or a secant error response. That's what we're getting back. Now we have to map it so that we're extracting these data structures, the result of the query. So the response, well. Yeah. Let's use the tap response from NgRx component store. Or do I want to use that here? Because they have some, they do have some error codes, but many times they're actually using status code 200 OK, and then just setting the success to false. So first, let's switch map. No, it doesn't have to be switch map. Let's just go with merge map. And the default mapping operator. So we're getting a response, and it will at this point it's either success or an error response. So we can say if the response success is true, then we will turn it into an observable of the response.result.records. If it's false, we will turn it into an observable emitting an error. Where's my auto import? Oh, it was already there. And then, yeah, there will be some error message, but I don't remember what the properties are called, so I'll just say secant error. Hey, Sarkan, you're also up late. Hello, good to see you. Okay, so now I have split it out into the success response, and it will emit an error if it's an error response. So that's good for the first here. Then the error will handle the error higher up in the code at a higher level. We could also throw in a retry strategy here, but let's not do that for now. The API is usually stable. Okay. Yeah, well, this actually, it looks like this is what we want to do, but now there's one thing, that is we need to pass it a query string. So what's that called? Is it params? It's a query string parameter. Yeah, I think it's params. So we'll have SQL, and then we need to have this beautiful Postgres query over HTTP, because, yeah, I didn't decide it. Going into SQL mode here, SQL expert, Lars, from the old days, we're all using SQL. No, remove this limit. Oh, that's the order by. Okay, so I want, this is time series, so I want the oldest one first. So I actually want it in ascending order. And there's an index on the UTC column, so we should be using that. This is the data set names. There's several in this energy data service API. Hello, Mateus. Welcome to the stream. NX After Dark. We are creating a data access library. Right now, we're creating a service wrapping the Angular HTTP client, and then we'll use it inside of a component store. Okay, so I didn't want this column, so I'll just delete that. And I will rename this one to minutes 5 UTC so that it's camel case. Isn't that? Oh, casing. I'll do it like so. And CO2 emission as CO2 emission, and price area as camel case price area. Okay, so that is the good thing about this weird SQL over HTTP, that you can actually make some pretty wonky select queries. so I can actually put work on the server side, make it do a lot of work for me, which is good when you're dealing with huge data sets. This one won't be huge because I'll only be querying 2 days. But in the other APIs, you could, for example, be querying a whole year's worth of data in 5-minute intervals over several areas. So, or even, several areas or several energy sources and whatnot. So at that point, it might be a benefit to put some load on the server through but you have to know Postgres to do it. Yeah, what the heck? Yeah, that's right. It's called secant. You can look it up. Python and Postgres behind the scenes. You can shove in all kinds of flat files and what do you have, and it'll create a data API almost for you. And so you can then query that data using the. Can you do a drop? No, I only have read-only access. public only has read-only access, but there is a Python API on top of the CCAN as well. So if you have the right permissions, like you can do anything. And even through the web API, like if I had a user with special privileges, yeah, I guess I could do anything here, because there is also an API for inserting and updating and all that. So, but this is without any authentication. This is the public API, so that is of course read-only. So I can only do a select, and I don't think it can do like SQL statements. The only thing I can do is single query. Yeah. This seems to be what I want. And do they make, like, what about the order here? This is time series. I mean, usually I order them just by letter, like alphabetically. But here, if I'm inspecting them in the, like, say, the networks tab, this is a time series value. So having the timestamp first, and then the value, and then like the scope of that value, that seems to be a logical order for me to easier look into the data manually. And it doesn't really matter in the end. So yeah, this should be fine. So that is it. And we won't really be able to test it until we have an actual UI, which we don't right now. So I mean, manually test it, see it working. But we will write tests. Don't worry. Wallaby is actually telling me right now that all of this code doesn't have any tests coverage at all. So it's showing these grayed out boxes here. There is a test, but it's probably just constructing the class. That is green, so there is some coverage. So let's get into the test. Oh, I'm also seeing here the errors in the tests. So let's go into the first breaking error here. So I'm control clicking. This is Wallaby down here. Also has a nice sidebar here where I can see that. Oh, it doesn't work right now. Yeah. Okay. So it's saying that there's no provider for HttpClient. Yeah, that's right. So now that we have the HttpClient injected, I will go and find, and I don't have my auto import, so it's going to be manual. Good thing I know the APIs by now. There's the HttpClient testing module that will replace some of the dependencies of the HttpClient, so it won't be hitting an actual server, and we can stop the responses or mock out the responses from the server in our test. What else? Still no provider for HttpClient. Oh, in the imports, dummy. Yeah, easy mistake to do, right? No provider for HttpClient. Again, that must be in some other test, right? No. Still here. Why is that? Oh, this was actually not the HttpClient test. This was the our component store. But yeah, let's leave it in here for now, because then at least the tests are still running and working from before. So we'll do the same. We'll be focusing on the HTTP test right now. So we'll also add that too. Let's see, we don't have a test module here, but we need to do that now. Testbed configure testing module into the imports, add this HttpClient testing module, and now golden. Come on. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, so now we have stopped out the HttpClient. So now we need the HTTP testing utilities. So this is going to be a bit boring. Don't know if you want to go back to the component store first before we get back to this HTTP testing. What do you say? Do you want to add these HTTP tests right now, or do you want to get back to the component store? Let me know. Yeah, I'm looking at you. What do you want to see? Get back to the component store, test the HTTP client. Very casual watchers right now. Or you can't decide. I don't know. Okay. Oh, Ciao, you're up first. You're saying test the HTTP first. And you're saying component store will end up calling the HTTP. Yes, it is already calling the HTTP client. But we're missing some of the implementation. We're also missing some of the HTTP implementation right now because, yeah, this would actually be a very bad query to send as is right now because there's no limit on it, and there's no, like, we're missing the where clause here. That's the most important part we're missing right now. Are you going to? Okay, Michael is here for the tests. Brandon is saying, I'm going to use the HTTP testing APIs. Yes, I'm going to use the Angular testing APIs or just mock them. Yeah, for this test, I'm using the HTTP testing API. And then in the component store test, I'll be mocking or stopping this, my own HTTP client. Because no one wants to manually stop out the Angular HTTP client. It has too broad of an API for that. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we're missing something here, but since I managed to get in, yeah, we'll do that. Do our clause. Let's get the test running first. And let's close the other files. More of a focused view here. Okay. So this was a test that worked before. And why does it not work now? Because we introduced this HTTP client. So it is like virtually it is doing a request right now, but it's waiting for our fake or mocked or stopped backend, HTTP backend from that was provided by this HTTP client testing module. So it's replacing some of the dependencies behind the HTTP client, and there's a lot. It's a real mess in back behind the HTTP client, which is why we always need this HTTP client module, or in this case, the HTTP client testing module. So right now, after we call this method, it is stuck here on this get method. It's waiting for a response so that it can emit through this observable, and we can get down to our own logic down here. And we can even see Wallaby is saying that we're getting to this point, then the test is failing. So we're not getting down here. This is not covered by tests right now. It's not touched or exercised by our tests. And why is that? It's because it's getting stuck here on this first HTTP operation. So now I'm trying to remember the HTTP thingies from Angular. There's a controller, testing controller. So let's get that in here in the shared variable. Oh, I can't spell. Here we go. Is that right? Yeah. Good. So that is what we need here. So, and okay, so it's a mock, and the mock is tell the mock the expectation before you call it, and then you verify the mocked calls. But I think the HTTP one is actually tell it after you make the call. So that's a bit backwards. And then you can verify it finally. So let's try that. I might be wrong, but if I recall correct, then this is what we're doing. So you can pass it a URL that we're expecting, but this will be a very long URL because there's this very long SQL parameter. Oh, by the way, yeah, this one also, I need to remove the new lines from this one. I think we'll figure it out. Yeah, because of this is a query string parameter, so this will be part of the URL, so to speak. So, and I don't want to write the full URL here in the test. So another, instead of passing the URL, we can also say, this is the response. So what's we can add like, how do we match a response here? Well, the URL starts with, and then this thing. Yeah, so now might be a good idea to put it in a separate variable here. Tcan endpoint inner data service endpoint. URL. So it starts with so okay, and we could also do response.method is, and we're using Angular 12, so we might actually be in luck that we can use a new API here. If we go into the HTTP package, we now have HTTP status codes. But wait, that's not what we need. Oh, it's the HTTP method. Do we have an HTTP method enum or something? No. Oh, man. We missed. Wasn't the one we needed. But we can say we want to get request, and it should use this URL. That's the response we want to intercept here. So this will return, I think it's called a test request, which is kind of a strange name, or because it's more of a, yeah, I don't know. Disappointment. Yeah, I was so excited to use the HTTP status, but that wasn't what I needed. Oh, I called this the response. Sorry, this is the request. And yeah, but this is where it's kind of strange because it returns something called a test request, but I would see it more as this is actually the response, but whatever. The test request has, like, it has a request on it. But yeah, this is what we're looking for here is flush. So I think, yeah, and then the body, which is a string. So that would be JSON stringify something. So this is the response. Let's just give it back an empty array right now. So oh wait, no, that, like, we need that whole structure here. The CCAN response, and then this record interface I created. What was that called? CO2 emission prognosis record. So help me, salt, fields. No, I don't care about the fields. But here, the records, we'll give it empty records here. And then finally, success, true. So now we're giving it a proper response, but what did I do wrong here? Oh, SQL, yeah. That doesn't matter. Our code is not handling these random properties, so it doesn't matter what I put in here. But the success we're actually listening to, and the records is what we're extracting. So responding with that. And now comes the question if I did it in the right order. Like, do you have to expect before and then flush after? No, because now it's saying it's looking for a matching request, but it didn't find one. Before, it didn't say that. Okay. This is my setup up here. And here is my, like, you can use this arrange, act, assert rule for grouping. This is my test setup. This is my exercising the code, and this is my assertion. But yeah, I guess this is also part of the act, like making things happen, and then finally we're doing the assertions and verify. Yeah, we need to verify our expectations on this HTTP controller as well. So I'm doing something wrong. Like I'm probably, this is not matching. So I might just say match anything to see what I'm doing wrong. And true. Okay, so now I need to go look in the Angular docs because I hit a dead end here. I can't remember this HTTP testing API right now. Controller. What was it called? Testing controller. Yeah. Testing services. There's probably a section on HTTP. Yes. No, that's not what I need. Here it is. Oh, here's the HTTP guide. Importing the module. Getting the testing controller. Yeah, we did that. So when do we expect? So here they're making the request and then they're like setting up this expectation. Expecting a request for /data. Then they're doing assertions on the method. Flushing. Then verifying. Well, I think that's what I did. So this is a bit strange. They said that I could move this out to the after each. Sure. But doesn't really affect anything here. Yeah, so, so it might be because of this async await thing. Yeah, that's probably it. That is probably it. Yeah. When result. Okay, so now we're getting a promise And then down here, wait. We got an error. They have to call done for just to be happy. No. I'm making it async. And then it should be happy when there's no remaining promises. So yeah, but we're getting further down here now. And response. Okay. So here we're getting into the secant error. But I thought we gave it like a success true. Okay. So maybe you should tap into that. See what's here. Oh, tab is not fine. Yeah, import it. Help me, help me. That's success is true. So why response? Okay, so is it because I can just give it? No, I need to pass it a string, right? It has to be. No, that was it. I didn't need to JSON stringify it. Okay, I can just pass it an object or an array or whatever. Okay, good. So now you can see here, Wallaby is telling me that it's green, and also down here, tests are now passing. Green over here. So let's add this mocking logic again. Good, yeah. So now we're also verifying that it's sending a GET request to this endpoint. And we could do more expectations or assertions on the request, but this is good for now. So here's the HTTP service, and we're getting back an empty array. Yeah, records. Cleaning up a bit here. Equal records. No, empty array. No, I guess now it depends. Now we actually have an implementation, so now it depends on whatever we're doing here. So what if we added a record? The CO2 emission is 100 grams per kilowatt hour, and we have like timestamp here, the 20th of May, and it's this interval, Danish time. These CO2 statistics are 5-minute intervals, and we're in DK1, which is Western Denmark. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Good thing I'm doing these tests, because now I forgot about something. What I'm getting back is, of course, a string in the right here. The response will be a string, but I want to convert it into a date. So I'll do that right here. Here we go. But now I have the issue that I don't have a type to represent the raw response type. Annoying. The pains of TypeScript. The pains of TypeScript. Always needing more types. You know what? I'll leave it out for now. This is not really giving me pleasure right now. Is it? Oh no! Another TypeScript thingy. Yeah. Okay. So it should equal. Now I'm getting into testing more than one thing in one test, like making more than one assertion. That's bad. The good thing is it works. Like it's getting this JSON object from the server and it's mapping it into a date property here. It's already a number, so that's good. It's a string. Like I might want to add some value objects representing these price areas, but I won't do that right now. But now my problem is this test case is doing too many things. It's testing more than one thing. Well, first of all, it's testing the proper request is sent, but yeah, that's common in testing an HttpClient. But down here in the assertions, it's doing too much right now. So instead, what could I do? I could say, what's it called? Expect array containing this is just, by the way, an object containing, and then minutes. Yeah, now we want it to be this record thingy. This property is any number. This property is any date. This property is string. Oh. What did I do wrong here? Array containing must provide an array to array containing, not an object. Okay. Really? Yeah. Okay, so now it's good. So this is the jest API for kind of asserting a structure or an interface, but not the values. So you see that it is matching, but it isn't looking into what is the values. Well, except now I also verify that it's a date. So I might still be doing too much here. Yeah, I am. I'm definitely doing too much. So this one will become the maps response to records. And then I'll do a more response or emits an array. So now I'll say instead any array. So this is a smaller test. Yeah, good thing. Now I have two tests here, and I could change the test data. So if there's an error, it'll be easier to identify which one. But yeah, I don't care right now to extract any of this, even though it's copy pasted a lot. But this is good for now. Let's check out the test coverage of our service. Oh, it's at 93.33%. Great. So what are we not covering? I'll give you one guess. Here, the error case. We're not testing that. When on success, it's maps successful responses to records. Yeah, exactly. The error case. The error case. It emits an array for successful responses, and then we'll have an error case here. So I'll just copy paste again this test case for now. I'll say it emits an error for error responses. Yes. So I don't need the record. I need a secant error response. And I haven't filled out all the properties because I don't remember them, but this is at least indicating that it's an error response. We're flushing back. Okay. Yeah. So now, let's see. Now we need to deal with this error. And since this is a promise, I have to remember now, like this is just, I can say something like error. It has like, oh, rejects to equal error. Yay, yay me, I remembered something. So yeah, so now I don't need async, I guess, in this test case. And I also guess I didn't actually need it up here since I'm not immediately awaiting it. I'm storing the promise here. So I can remove await and then just also has expect, then the promise, and then resolves. So this will be like, if the promise goes well, it will resolve a value and will make an expectation on that. And down here, we're expecting it to reject this promise to reject, and then making assertions on what is the rejection here. So I will also remove the async part from this test case, and instead of awaiting, we'll do the same here. We'll say resolves. So kudos to Jest. I actually like these APIs, like the resolves and the matchers for the shapes and the arrays, the objects, the types, expectations. I like those. Those are pretty good. Hello, Christopher. Nice to see you again. We have been implementing this HTTP service, HttpClient, well, most of it anyways. And now we have tested it. So what's our test coverage now? Wallaby, we're at 100%. Nice. We're missing one thing here, like the filter of the date. I won't do that right now. I'll go over to the component store now and start to set up the test for that. Now that it has a working, more or less working HttpClient. So this one will be closing down these files. We're done with them for now. Now we're going back to our component store, and we'll be looking to test that as well with the HTTP client we just implemented. So our tests, we are providing this component store. It doesn't have a provider in its decorator here. So any component using it would also need to provide it at the correct level wherever you want to share it, like what's the scope of this store. And that's for a future decision. Right now we just know we won't be making it a singleton. It will either be component specific or within an area of the app, like a page or a section on a specific page, probably, or a chart component. Who knows? But yeah, so let's look at its dependencies. In the constructor, we see it's getting one dependency injection, and that is our HTTP client. So now we have the option, where do we want to stop or replace its dependencies? Do we, like right now, I just added the HTTP client testing module so that the test would actually be running. Why am I not seeing this? Let me just, let me just restart Wallaby. Starting up again. Okay, so do we want to stop our own service? Yes, it's probably much easier. Oh, here we go. So now we have the gutters again from Wallaby, showing that all the tests are running and passing as well. And all this code is covered, but we're still not covering down here. But yeah, do we want to stop our own HTTP service or the Angular one? Yes, we want to stop our own because we don't want to go through all that HTTP controller thing again, because it's not a nice API. There's a lot of work for very little. So what we can do, there are several options. We can make a stop class of our HTTP client, or we can just stop one of the methods of our HTTP client. I'll probably be looking into that first. And we can even implement the stop class using a component store, which is something I've been doing at work, which is very nice. The component store is very flexible, fast to like prototype things, and very flexible. So yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. So here, yeah, by the way, this one is a singleton service because it's internal to this library, but it's also stateless. So it doesn't matter if we're sharing the instance. It's a stateless service. So we can, now we're making sure at least that it will never trigger an actual request, because our test could be doing HTTP requests. They won't do that now, so I'm not hammering this API with my tests. But what we will do is we will take out our HTTP service here. By injecting from Angular's BI, importing that class, yeah. Then we will do test.spy on HTTP, and then the name of the method, which is get. So now we will have a get spy. We can return that from this setup function that I explained yesterday why I created it this way. But yeah, it's because we're immediately inside of our store, we're immediately kicking off some effects and running them every minute. So we need to, what we need to do is we need to stop out or put a spy on this HTTP service before the store is created. So that's what we're doing here. It's very important to do it before. And that was the reason that I created this setup function rather than having everything in the before each hook. Well, I guess I could do this in before each as well. Yeah, maybe. Sometimes you definitely need to use this one. So I guess that's why I did that for this test suite. Might not be necessary right now, but we'll stick with it this time. Okay, and this is where we see that I suck at testing RxJS because I haven't figured out how to do marble test yet. So I'm doing more of a manual thing. So what would we want to test now? Yeah, so this initial emission is from the initialization of the store. So we have this initial state of an empty array for these records. But as soon, we'll also be kicking off immediately this request. So we'll also get some records based on what is returned from the HTTP client. Oh yeah, so yeah, now it's coming back to me. So we also need to mock its return value before we instantiate this store, because it will be making a request immediately. Is this Angular 12? Use RxJS 7 and the last value of API. Yeah, it's Angular 12, and yeah, I was looking for that last value of instead of the 2 promise. But yeah, it's apparently not in RxJS 6, only in the 7. Yeah, well, yeah, we can upgrade that some other time, maybe next time. Right now, let's try to finish this test suite. Yeah, so we need a return value, and it's an observable of something. It's an observable of records. If we look into this get method, I actually have a type for this, so let's use that. So now I'll do a type for my parameter here. Could make them optional, and then the default is empty array. And could even make the whole parameter optional. Yeah, this is some funky JS syntax. You'll figure it out at some point. It like all this new syntax for the past 6 years, 7 years. It's like it's really initially it's putting you off, but then you need to you start to learn it, and then yeah, you're using it everywhere. So it's just that initial learning curve, right? Once you get past that, you'll start to enjoy it, even new syntax. Here we go. Yes. So now I was able to mock the return value of the HTTP services get method. This is not the Angular HTTP client's get method. It's my own get method of this HTTP service that I created, which is wrapping Angular's HTTP client. But this is the important part. I need to set up this stopped value, or they call it the mocked value, before I construct the store, because as soon as the store is constructed, it will kick off this effect, because that's called in the constructor, and the timer set to 0. So it'll happen very fast. Good. So our tests, what are they doing? There's a test for the provider, or how it's provided. And there's one test for the records observable. It initially emits 0 records, yes. And now it emits records. It immediately emits records from the CO2 emission prognosis API. That's what it's called. Don't lose your marbles. Well, yeah, if someone's going to teach me marble testing, I'm here. I'm here. I just haven't spent the time to learn it yet. I've been getting by with to promise, basically. I haven't been testing a lot of timing sensitive things. And when I have I've been using fake async and tick instead. So that's my go-to tools, is the fake async and tick, and the to promise. Of course, then you need to make sure that it's only emitting one value and then completing, or it won't ever be turned into a promise. And now when RxJS7 comes, to promise will it be deprecated, or is it already deprecated? It's not deprecated yet, so it will be. Will it be deprecated, or is it just removed? It is a major version, so it could just be removed as a breaking change. Yeah, but anyways, I shouldn't be using it anymore, but the option for the last value of or first value of is not in RxJS 7 or R6. So yeah, we should change this soon. Okay, so one more test here for, so now we can set up the records. These CO2 emission prognosis records, and then say it's at 80 grams per kilowatt hour, and it's in the current interval. This is the nice thing about time series. I don't have to make up the dates. I can just use whatever the time is right now. Then I'll have unique test values everywhere, at least for the times. Here, passing in the records, and then getting out something from my test setup. I'm getting this store. I'm getting the get spy. I guess I don't even need the spy. Well, yeah, maybe if I wanted to check like how many times it was called and what parameters was sent to it. And I will have to test that as soon as I add some parameters. So yeah, let's leave it here. But get spy is not a good name. How about HTTP get spy? Yeah, much better. Much better. Can't find the right keys. Here they are. Refactoring gone wrong. Okay, so now for the test without marbles. Chow is saying maybe observer spy is better alternative for me. Is that a testing library by, I don't know, Shai Resnick or someone like that? Deprecated. Okay, so to promise is deprecated in RxJS 7. So when will it be removed? In minor 7 point something or in major 8.0? We'll see. We'll see. So now this was our test setup. This is our arrange part, and now we need an act part, and finally an assert part. So acting, we're acting on subscribing to this records property. So again, we're saying, well, not the first value, because it has that initial emission. So now it's already getting a little complicated here. We'll skip one, take one. Skip that initial state here with the empty array, and we'll take the first one that is returned by the HTTP client. To promise. And now maybe I can use async await this time. This is the expected records. And it will return the actual records. All right. Yes, I just need to await it. Look at me doing RK tests without RxJS marbles. Yeah, this Shai Resnick created this observer spy. I haven't used it. I remember it. Yeah, it might be a good option for me, or I will just have to take a bite of that poisoned apple that is RxJS marbles. Yeah, I'm going to need it for sure. I haven't invested the time to learn it. So now we can expect on actual records to, and we could, if we say to be, it will be strict equals, like reference equals, like it has to be the exact same array. But I'm happy with just needs to contain the same elements, right? Expected records. Let's say it, I don't know, maybe it takes them out of one array and spreads them into another for some reason. That's fine with me, as long as they are matching the same properties, and just as good at doing that when, or looking for that when we're doing two equal on arrays. Okay. So now we have that initial request when the timer is kicked off at 0. But yeah, we're missing one part at least here, and that is it has to kick off every minute as well. And then, as you might have noticed here, we're also not covering the error case here inside of here when the HTTP client errors. What happens then? Maybe assert HTTP gets by to have been called, so it's not useless. Yes, I will do that as soon as it gets some parameters here. I will assert on the parameters, but I could also do one thing here, which is to have been called one time, so that it's not making excessive requests. Let's not just make sure that it can fail if it was two. Yeah, but it's one. Good. So in another test, I'll assert on the parameters sent to get, and we'll put in these parameters for this where clause. But we haven't gotten that far with the implementation yet. So for the store, I want to test this error case. Wallaby can help me out here as well and say toggle the uncovered code regions. And now it's highlighted in yellow that this is the piece of code or logic that's not tested yet. So that's the errors. Records on successful response from the API. Yeah. Now we want the error case. On error response, it emits. No, it doesn't emit an error because of tab response, we are managing this case. So it's not breaking the observable chain, but we are doing the side effect of clearing the records, which will emit an empty array. So it emits, it clears the records on error response from this API. So we don't need these expected. Well, the expected records will be empty array. So I don't think we need a property for that. Yeah, okay, so now it's getting, yeah, now it's getting a little complicated because now I need to like make it error rather than records in this setup. This is timing. Timing is difficult, and I don't know if Marble test would have helped me out here. I mean, I could also have like accepted a spy or a mark function from jest in the setup, and then apply it to the get method, or override the get method. That might be a better use. Yeah, that might actually be a lot better. Because otherwise we'll end up having to support all kinds of weird use cases, or have a lot of parameters. That's not really nice either. So we'll be accepting a, yeah, it should still be this spy. So what's the type for that? It's just the spy instance. There's also just a mark, but that's just a function. Can we spy on that? Yeah, I think we can. So the generic interface for this is first the return value. No, what is the type of, let's see, it's the type of the return value and then the type of the parameters or the arguments. So the return value is observable of, then it's these records, and then an array with the parameters, but there are no parameters or arguments for this one. It's not happy right now, but it will learn to comply at some point. What is it unhappy about? It's missing in type. What did I do wrong here? Oh. Make it optional, because I'll like, if I don't pass it any, it will just create a new jest mock function. Don't pass it one that's already configured. I'll always replace this get method with the spy, and by default it's just a spy that does nothing. It will accept any calls. What will it return? Nothing. Maybe it could return an empty array by default. Right. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Then I don't need to return this by because I'm passing this by instead. This test is passing, this one as well. And now we're going down here. Now I need to create this by myself. So I can do just.fn mock return value of expected records. Yay, look at that. Seems to have gone well. Let's see if we can still fail the test as well. Is it calling 2 times? No, it's calling 1 time. Is it an empty array? No. Oh, invalid date. Nice. Date of not a number. Sweet. Wow. Okay, I messed something up in this one, I guess. Let's see. What did I do wrong here? It looks right to me. What's going on? Surely this is valid. Surely this is valid. Yeah. Okay, so what am I doing wrong? 2021. Oh, month and day reversed. Yeah. In Danish, we're using another format, but of course this is the ISO format. In Danish it would be like so. But yeah, ISO is much better. But even though I do it every day, use the ISO format, still get it wrong. Now I got it wrong again. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, so it's not an empty array, but it is actually the expected records. Good. Good. America. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what I did there. A mistake. So I need to create this by HTTP get spy just mock, and it will. What will it do? It will mock. It will return something that froze. And seek an error. Yeah. So what we're testing here is that the records are cleared when an error happens in the HTTP client. And that is what's happening now. We're skipping that initial emission, and the first one that comes after that is from the HTTP client. So it's handling this error case by clearing the records state internally in the store. But that is exposed through this public records property observable right now. So yeah, we're getting another cleared array out, and it's still only making one request. So that's good to verify whenever you have side effects. And HTTP response shouldn't be excessive or chatty, right? Okay, let's look at test coverage. We have 7 tests. Let me show you the coverage and test explorer of Wallaby. It looks like so. It has 2 tabs here. These are our test suites, and they're running in this many milliseconds right now. And these are the test cases or tests. Yeah, the test cases and the groups. we can see each one individually here. I don't remember what these things do. But we could also go to files and say, what's the test coverage? Look at that, it's 100%. Isn't that great? Could even go to the files here and say the HTTP service. No, where's the, oh, here it is. Yeah. So now we're getting an in the Wallaby app, web app, we're getting the code here. And we can see a similar, like inside of VS Code, we also have these gutters with the passing state, and we would be able to see if something was uncovered. But everything is covered, so great. Good work, good work. So what did we do? What did I change in the HTTP client? Oh, just this type. So that didn't have anything to do with the test. Use collection type. For the tests, cover HTTP collaborator. I mean, even though we have 100% test coverage, we're still missing a case, a pretty important case. So that's the danger of using test coverage as the metric to guide you, the only metric, the one to rule them all. Because we didn't, even though we're covering, because we're calling this code in the test, we are not checking that this is actually being triggered every single minute. But that will be for another episode. Now it's definitely too late. It's past 11 p.m. So I will be heading to bed and clear my thoughts and getting a good night's sleep. So thank you for hanging in there. Let me go back here and say hello to everyone out there. This was fun. And yeah, let's see what, yeah, let's go back here. What do we have? We still have the store. We have the HTTP client, but we haven't almost the full implementation. So we're missing this where clause. That has some specifics in it as well for this API. We're also missing I'm pretty sure we need to turn this into a one-line string, or it will, it might, like Postgres might not be happy, or even the URL encoding, I don't know. This is a query string parameter after all. So a few details. So I'll actually add that to do here. Remove new lines. What is this commit about? It's a dog. Yeah. Thank you, Chow. Yeah, thank you for coming, Chow. This was nice. Michael, thank you for staying up late. Yeah, so we also looked at the dependency graph earlier from NX. Let's pull that up again to see our exciting NX workspace. We have an app which has nothing changed since it was generated. It's an Angular app. And we have this data access library. This is the one we're focusing on right now. And then once we have finished that and have all the nice tests and good coverage, then we'll start to build the layers between the data access and the app here. So we'll need a feature layer, and we'll need a shell layer probably as well. But we might start by just having the feature layer and then pulling it directly into the app just to see how it looks and how it works. And then we might add the shell with our second feature or something like that. And to remind you, this is the NX After Dark logo, but to remind you, I want to visualize this data. This is the CO2 emission forecast for the Danish electricity grid. And we can even see the numbers for tomorrow. Let's see, I'll just take one area here, Western Denmark. And 52, so everything below 80 grams per kilowatt hour produced. And this is 5-minute intervals, it's very precise, is good. Everything below 80 is good. So, but this is, yeah, this is late night. And how about the day? Okay, so we won't get below 80 in Denmark until 8 p.m. at night, Danish local time. So it's going to be a non-green day in Denmark tomorrow. What's the peak according to the forecast? 165 grams of CO2 equivalent greenhouse gases per kilowatt hour produced. Yeah, but yeah, I want to visualize this. You can see one example here on the front page. Here, I want something similar to that, but display all the available forecast hours. And what could we use that for? We could use it, for example, to say which, what would be the best time to run the dishwasher, the washing machine, yeah, anything like that that uses a lot of power. So yeah, I can use it personally. Other people in Denmark, there's also like, it's not, this data is not only available for Denmark, there's also the cross-European organization called NgRx. They also have, they call it their transparency platform. They also have APIs, but you have to sign up and get an API key. But here you can see it for like, here's one for Norway, right? This is not CO2, but this is the amount of produced plant power to be produced. So there's APIs for, here we can see for Spain, the different energy sources. They will have quite a good amount of solar tomorrow. But what's the green one here? That is, I can't see that. Okay. Other renewable? No. I guess the zoom level is yeah. No, it's just a bad chart. It's not really. Oh, I can't see the biggest chunk what that is. That's strange. Okay. But yeah, there's data for all European countries here. You could, for example, see. I hope there's something for CO2 as well, or at the very least, I can see like the energy sources. And so when there's a lot of solar or wind or hydro power, that's the hours you would want to run your electricity appliances. So both as a consumer, this can be helpful to me. For commercial, it can also be helpful. Like you can schedule or you can time shift some of your power consumption to a period with greener energy sources. And usually that's also the cheaper periods in time. So they go hand in hand, which is nice, at least in the European model for power trading. Even yeah, this is even something I'm doing. Well, I'm doing something like this at work, where System8 is doing energy systems. But this one I'm doing for my dad, actually. He's running a local small centralized heating plant. So to produce heat, he runs, he has several engines, whatever you call them. And one is like a generator. Well, it's more of a, one is like a boiler, a gas boiler. So that's not very green, but that's what he uses for producing the central heat. But that to do that, he will generate a lot of power as a side effect of the heat. The power, producing the power, is what generates the heat for the city. But he's looking into, like, he also has a what is that called? A heat pump running on electricity. So that's the opposite thing. Like, he can take electricity to produce the heat, and then he doesn't have to burn fossil gases, natural gas. So if he can see which hours will have like a lot of wind power and solar power in Denmark, then he knows that he can rely on the electricity for producing a good amount of his heat. He also has on his plant, they also have solar, not solar cells for electricity, but solar panels for like, it's collecting the energy from the sun through basically mirrors, glass and mirrors, and absorbing that energy in water that's going through all these pipes. So there are several sources of energy, and the greenest source is usually the cheapest. Like, solar is the cheapest, but it's not. The sun is not shining at night, right? I mean, central heating plants like his, they have what's known as, what's the English term? I guess it's in Danish, it's called an accumulation tank. So they have a giant tower filled with water. So that water is pretty good at storing heat. So it can run him. I don't know the exact number. I don't remember, but maybe it's like you can store the heat pretty well for 8 hours or so in that water tank, maybe. But then you'll run out of sun power, sun heat at some time, and then you need to run, for example, the heat pump that's running on electricity, or in worst case, fire, burn some of the fossil gases. And Danish central heating has to go away from any source of fossil fuel before, I think it's before 2030. So they're all building huge solar plants, or what else? Like these electricity-driven heat pumps, and some of the smaller ones are allowed to use biomass, which is actually burning wood. And that sounds renewable, but it's really not, because it's releasing a lot of CO2 when you're burning all that wood. The wood is absorbing the CO2, so when you burn it, you're releasing it back into the atmosphere. So that's not really green. I mean, if you, for example, well, there's exceptions. If you, for example, clear a field that was used for agriculture before, and you planted trees only for the purpose of like energy, then it might be a little better. But if you're cutting down ancient woods, you're also releasing ancient carbon that has been stored for maybe 100 years in that those trees. And the older the trees, the better they are at absorbing the CO2. So it's really bad to chop down wood to burn it. It's not good for the environment. Central heating in Denmark is looking into solar powered heating and electricity driven, and we're also recycling a lot at home. So we're recycling our food, right? So that gets turned into biogas, which gets used for the central heating or the central gas system on the nationwide gas system. So yeah, lots of green going on. Also in the tests. Xiao, if you're still here, you were asking, when does the 80 mark start? Okay, so the 80 kilograms, or sorry, the 80 grams per kilowatt hour produced. Let's see, tomorrow in Denmark, in Western Denmark, where I'm living, it is 80, below 80 streak, or 80 max starts at, it's at 81, 82 for a long while here. So, but 61 is reached at 8 p.m. at night, right? If the forecast turns out to be right. And it's usually not, but it's an indication, at least. But yeah, the energy grid the electricity grid is a very complicated domain. So lots of things will happen. Like the wind won't blow, the sun won't shine enough. So you have to fire up the fossil fuels and whatnot. So, and then it won't be green after all. So it depends a lot on the weather. It depends a lot on, can we import the excess hydropower from Norway and Sweden? Uh, so yeah, it's really complicated, but a fun domain to work with. I enjoy it quite a lot, and gives me a sense of purpose. Right, I'm helping in some way. I'm helping a little bit with the green transition, but yeah, there's a lot to that story. Like what is green, and like how end to end what is green. That's for another day. What time does the 80 mark start in the morning? Okay, let's see. So right now this is today. No, we have to scroll to the next page here. Okay, so this is today, and we're at 23:20. So we're in this 5-minute interval right now. So right now it's, according to the forecast, it's at 130 grams per kilowatt hour produced. So grams of CO2 or equivalent greenhouse gas per kilowatt hour produced. So when tomorrow will we get below 80? Is there a time in the morning? Let's see. So now we're at midnight, 101, and then here we strike 80 at 20 minutes past midnight if the forecast holds. Indication of business hours. Yeah, like there's a lot of electricity consumption that isn't changing much. It's constant, and it's usually around from 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening. That's where the most electricity gets consumed in Denmark, as it is right now. But we're looking into, there's being built like what's known as power to X, that is producing. It's called hydrogen in English, I think. Producing hydrogen from power. So producing heavy fuel hydrogen for engines and transportation and whatnot, whenever there's an excess of power. And that will happen at some point, because they keep building huge offshore and onshore windmills or wind turbines and wind farms, and huge solar farms as well for power. So we're going to need to be flexible on the consumption as well, because you can't just, it doesn't make sense. Like you can't even turn off all that solar, and it's not good to turn off the windmills or wind turbines either. So yeah, we're hitting 80 here, 20 minutes past midnight, and then when will we go above 80 again? That will be, see, I said 7 o'clock, right? That's where most of the consumption starts to kick off. Let's see. Oh, so already at 5 o'clock in the morning, some people are getting up. Some engines are being fired up in this industrial plants or whatever, or the night shift ends and they're turning up all the machines. I don't know, but definitely at 5 o'clock here, that's where we get above 80 again, which is kind of interesting because that's where the sun starts to shine. So we should see some solar being produced, but it's not enough for like the whole, like to run the whole electricity grid. There's too much consumption. Like even is it a crypto miner? No. Like the big tech companies are building lots of data centers in Denmark, and they're saying we're 100% green, we're running on wind turbine power, but that's not really the truth, because they're running 24/7. The windmills are not running 24/7. So, but they're buying fancy certificates that tell them that they have purchased some amount of, whatever they're going to use in a year, but that is on average throughout the year, that they have like a guarantee that this much windmill electricity will be produced, but it doesn't happen to match when the windmill power is being produced and when the data center needs power, which is always because the windmill is going like this. So it's just a fancy certificate. It's not helping solve anything because the windmills will be turning no matter if you buy the certificate or not. It's not there for you, but now it's like NFTs, right? you purchase a certificate, now you own this, but you can't touch it. Like it's like that, basically. So that's what we call greenwashing. And Microsoft's doing it, Google's doing it, Facebook's doing it, Apple is doing it. They're all building data centers in Denmark and declaring them green. But that's not the truth, unfortunately. But yeah, above 80 at 5 o'clock. I mean, we could also look here at the, like, what's the actual electricity, like how much is being produced. Here it is, sorry. Production and consumption, or here, electricity. Production, consumption. Let's look at consumption. Oh, no data sets for consumption. Strange. It says 14. Production and consumption. What's going on? Okay, let's try to find one here. Production. Electricity production and exchange. Production and consumption settlement. Let's look for this one. Might not be a forecast. Oh, it is. No, it's for today. Okay, let's look at what it was like today. Is there a total? Let's look in Western Denmark, where I live. So this is the amount of, is it terawatts produced? Let's see. No, megawatts per hour. Yeah, okay. Megawatts per hour. This is 5-minute intervals, so it's not megawatts per 5 minutes. It's just like the level in that 5-minute interval. So this is the onshore wind, the offshore wind. But where's the rest of it? Oh, here. Okay, so there's onshore and offshore wind, there's solar, and there's like exporting and importing to other countries and other areas. And then there's, this is other energy sources, the centralized power plants. So there's the small ones below 100 megawatts and the large one above 100 megawatts. So we can see that, well, what hour is this? This is right now, or 5 minutes ago. We were producing almost 300 megawatts per hour on small power plants that are not green, 400 on the big plants that are not green, 400 on the offshore wind power that is green or renewable, 350 on the onshore wind power, no solar. So we're about 50%, maybe a little more, 50% renewable right now because of the massive wind farms and wind turbines. But still, like, I wonder which power Microsoft and Google is running on right now, because the wind power is not reserved to them, even though they have the certificate. It's equally distributed. So they can say 50% green, but 100% green? No, that's not going to work in my book. Yeah, these are the questions I have every day. These are the things I'm looking into. This is my work. This is my job. This is what I develop systems for, using Angular, using NX, using Azure, .NET, and all of that goodness. Yeah, that was another long session. I'm glad you stayed. I hope you learned something, anything. Maybe it's something about testing. Maybe I can learn something about testing RxJS. That's one barrier I haven't conquered yet, or the RxJS marbles. I mean, I know them. I somewhat understand them. I just haven't used them yet because I don't really. I mean, I can read them when they are in tests, but I can't really like how would I describe this in marbles? Like how would I describe like they are these frames, right? And it's like 10 milliseconds or something. Maybe I can turn up the frames because I would need to test that 1 minute interval. I don't want to show like dashes for an hour. I would need to turn up the frames um, length so that it was more like 30 seconds or 1 minute or something like that. Yeah, because I would like to do like to test like emulating 1 hour where every minute that request is firing. That's what I want to test, and that I have tested something like that without marbles using fake async and tick. So I'm wondering how would I do that with marbles? Yeah, it could be interesting. Could be interesting. If you have any pointers for that, um, tweet at me. I need help. Okay. You have a nice day. Thank you for joining. See you some other time. Bye.